Hi Becca, this is Fancy. So this is the second part of the video, and it seems like you've um, set up your ground to kind of gradate between the different hue families. So you go from yellow to green to blue, which should either be cyan, maybe cyan, to purple to magenta, um, and then I don't really see a lot of orange. So I'm assuming that this should be the orange. So you have the green sandwiched in between its two primary parents and the purple sandwiched in between its two primary parents. But the problem is the orange is not sandwiched between its two primary parents. So what you could do is, try to kind of shift this. There's a lot, try to get some, the yellow back down here. There's a lot of yellow up here. So you could kind of shift everything up to the right and get some yellow down in this corner. Or you could do the vice versa, get some orange and magenta up here and shift everything down, either way. So as I mentioned before, we're not sure whether should be cyan or blue, or whether this should be magenta or red. So I'm not sure whether using the printers or the painter's primaries, and that's a really big issue that needs to be addressed right away. Next you have these single visual pathways. I'm glad that you got rid of just that single double visual pathway and then just had one single visual pathway, so that wasn't unifying. So the addition of three pathways does work better. The issue with these is that they are appearing as kind of figures on a ground. So you need to think about, how you're going to integrate these back into the ground. One way you might think about it is, having, having these share some of the background colors that they overlap. So maybe, for example, this long one starts with the value of yellow, like a little bit darker value of yellow than the background. So it seems like it might be kind of emerging out of the background. And then moving through kind of the green. So it can move from this yellow to maybe purple, kind of a complementary pathway relationship. Or it could, and make sure that it's gradating smoothly and that you're using vanishing boundaries to transition from one hue within the single visual pathway to another. And that would be the same for all of these. Otherwise, you could add, and then you have this purple one, so it's kind of complementary, kind of emerging out of the yellow, but also kind of out of the green. So I'm a little unsure whether you're going with complementary colors or not. For this one, if it is a complementary pathway against the yellow background, you could have vanishing boundaries kind of occur in this lighter area. So again, it feels like it's emerging out of this yellow background when these two colors blend or melt together and then kind of moving to darker, what you have now. Another thing that you need to think about is your transitions between the different hue families in the background. There is some overallness because you have values that are really high contrast. This green is really in high contrast to the yellow that it's next to. Kind of dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, or light, dark. So it's alternating between light and dark quite a lot, and so you get a feeling of overallness. Instead, where these colors come together, they should be using values that have vanishing boundaries. So you need lighter shades of green here. This is kind of a nice subtle gradation. It needs to move from, steps 1 and 2s to 2s and 3s, 3s and 4s, etc. And then when you get here to these middle 4 values, then you need to make sure that you are using those middle 4 values, and they do have vanishing boundaries. So the yellow could get darker, or the green could go a little bit lighter. Yellow could go a little bit darker. in the values that you're using. And it's the same for this. Look at this definite boundary here. It almost seems like a line. So you need to make sure that you're using vanishing boundaries when you intermingle these colors from where these two hue families come together. This is working a little bit better, but then you are using the darker values to achieve your vanishing boundaries. And we want to achieve them in the middle values. So, you know, you really do have a lot of work to do. And I'm sorry to have to tell you that. So let's see how you feel. Maybe you've made some progress since then. Otherwise, you might want to consider the late submission deadline tomorrow.